Travelling overseas can be exciting, and today international travel has never been more accessible. However, there is a downside, and that would be jet lag.
Yes, unfortunately, dramatically shifting time zones can play havoc with your body clock, which can take days to overcome. So, are there ways to avoid or at least minimise the effects of jet lag? Dr. Karl tried to beat it recently during a quick round trip to the UK.
You don't get propeller lag because propeller planes don't travel very fast and don't cover huge distances. But with a jet, you can, in 24 hours, cross 10 time zones, so that internally your body is saying, hey, I should be going to sleep shortly, and yet bingo, the sun is shining, and there's this sort of conflict. And so you end up with your body's internal biorhythms, and there's a bunch of them, and they're quite different, a whole different bunch of them, are not linked to the outside world, and you've got to try to perform at maximum efficiency. And that was the job I gave.
Bottom line, this is all about jumping time zones, because if you were travelling longitudinally, the effects aren't as great. Certainly you may be in the air for, say, 10 hours or so, if you're travelling, for instance, Tokyo, Sydney.
Yeah, so you'll get travel fatigue and dehydration and the effect of the...
And being at altitude.
And the altitude as well. Yeah. But you won't get the actual, your clock is wrong for where you're landing. And in fact, if you're going over to the west, it is easier than going to the east. So going to the west, the first thing you have to know is that your body runs not on a 24-hour clock, but about 24 and a half. And there are reasons for having a slight difference between your body's clock and reality. And then it's easy to lengthen it so that if you shift a whole bunch of time zones, the time it takes you to, number of days it takes you to get back to reality is about half of the number of time zones if you're going to the west.
But hang on, so essentially you're saying if you're travelling back in time to the west, it's easier to readjust.
It's easier if you're going 10 time zones, then you need maybe 5 days to adjust.
I'm sure you would agree one of the toughest plane trips in the world is from Australia to North America, where you're crossing the international date line. And by the time you get to, say, the west coast of the States, you feel as though you've been awake for at least a couple of days without any sleep.
That's right. So you're not feeling it properly, so that you're not tired at the local midnight, and then when the sun pops up, you are tired, which is exactly the opposite of what you want. So I follow the example of the Formula One teams, because they've got hundreds of millions of dollars in each team, and there's not just the pilot or driver who goes 350 Ks, there's probably 100 medical team, computer engineers, mechanics, various scientists, and pit crew who, if one of them makes a mistake, they lose the race. And so they eat nothing on the way over, or very little, have zero alcohol, use melatonin. Even though the advice is very poor on that, I admit the advice is poor, and then they then try to walk around in your local time zone. And I was able to do all of those and supposedly perform okay.
Well, also, having a first class or business class ticket would certainly help, having a bed that lies flat.
God bless frequent flyer points. Yes, I will start the religion of frequent flyer points in the lay flat bed. That is a wonderful thing. So I tried using the melatonin on the way over, and in fact it did the exact opposite. Instead of making me go to sleep, it made me wake up. Then coming back, I did try to do the other thing with having the big dose of melatonin. I took 10 or 20, and let me point out, this is the worst scientific experiment ever done. Do not trust the scientific sample of one, and it seemed to help. So I was tired, but at no stage was I jet lagged. I should have had 48 hours sleep in that window, and I had about 32.
OK, so you're saying for the average traveller, perhaps they should resist those temptations on a flight.
No
food,
minimal food, because
and also stop watching all that television on the back of your seat there.
For two reasons. Number one, watching television will actually drag you in and stop you from being asleep. I did this one day in Manchester, and I was feeling tired. I thought, well, I'll just try and catch up what's on TV. Blow me down. Everything on the BBC TV is about soccer. Did you know that? Oh, every one of the 50 channels. And I found myself 3 hours later. So it was a combination of it sucks you in and keeps you awake, and the blue light. Avoid the TV monitors. The blue light stops your natural production of melatonin. So I tried having the melatonin in the tablets to kick me into the time zone of the United Kingdom, and then kick me into the time zone of Australia. So you see, the thing is, you've got these different clocks. There's these suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, and it accepts inputs from how much melatonin you're taking, or how much melatonin you're making, and the local light levels, and how much food you're eating and activity you're eating, and all of those get combined together. Your liver in your gut has its own biorhythm, and so going for minimal food and minimal alcohol. I went 0 alcohol for 7 days, which doesn't hurt, and it helped me get through.
You're taking all the fun out of flying.
My job was to perform at the other end, and I think that I did that moderately well, or very well. I got good feedback on it.
Dr. Karl, happy flying.
Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew.
Yeah, see, for me, watching hours and hours of soccer would probably have that soporific effect of actually sending me to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't think Nick would agree. He doesn't mind his soccer.
That's
I don't
right.
mind it, yeah. I think a few A-League fans will be unhappy with you as well.
No, I don't mind
Andrew.
watching a game of soccer, but, you know, as he says, endless games of soccer. However,
Dig
we're
your way
going
out
to
of
talk
that
about
one,
rugby
mate.
union.
Yes, we are. We're going to steer away from the soccer for you for a little bit. We will get to it in
We'll keep you awake just a bit longer.
But, yeah, great start for the Wallabies on their spring tour this morning. It makes a big difference when you don't have to play New Zealand, that's for sure. They extended their winning streak over Wales to 12 straight matches this morning. That dates back to 2009. They absolutely dominated the Welsh this morning.